Have you ever listened to Americans speaking and thought, wow, they sound so natural, so casual, so smooth? It's not only about grammar or vocabulary, it's about the small, everyday phrases that slip into conversation. These little phrases are the secret to sounding more natural in English. Today, I'll share them with you, step by step, so you can start using them right away and feel confident when speaking. Hello, English learners. Welcome back to Talk English Now. I'm Sarah, and today we're going to explore the everyday phrases Americans use to sound natural in conversation. Let's begin with something simple. When Americans agree with someone, they often don't just say yes. Instead, they use phrases like for sure, totally, or absolutely. For example, if a friend says, "That movie was amazing," you can answer, "For sure, it was great." Notice how short and natural it feels. Practice saying it with me. For sure. Totally, absolutely. These are small phrases, but they carry a lot of natural rhythm. Another set of common phrases comes when people don't know the answer immediately. Instead of silence, Americans often say things like, "Let me think," "Good question," or "I'm not sure, but..." For example, if someone asks, "Where's the best pizza around here?" you might answer, "Good question. Let me think." These phrases give you time, and they make your English sound more fluent. When Americans are surprised, you'll often hear phrases like, "No way," "You're kidding," or "Seriously." Imagine your friend tells you, "I just met a famous singer yesterday." You can say, "No way, that's awesome." Try repeating after me slowly. "No way. You're kidding. Seriously?" Feel the emotion in these phrases. They're not just words, they show how you feel. Let's move to everyday situations like greeting people. Instead of always saying hello or hi, Americans often use phrases like, "Hey, what's up?" or simply, "How's it going?" These are casual and friendly. If someone says, "Hey, what's up?" you can reply with, "Not much, just relaxing," or "I'm good, how about you?" Practice with me. "Hey, what's up?" "How's it going?" Notice how smooth they sound. When you want to show interest in what someone is saying, phrases like, "I see," "Got it," or "Makes sense" are very common. For example, if a coworker explains a new rule, you can say, "Got it, thanks." Or when your friend tells you why they were late, you might reply, "Makes sense." These little phrases show that you're listening and understanding, and they make the conversation flow better. Now let's talk about phrases used to show agreement or to add something. Americans often say, "Exactly," "Right," or "That's true." Imagine someone says, "Learning English takes daily practice." You can reply, "Exactly. Daily practice is the key." Or when someone comments, "The weather is really hot today," you can respond, "Right, it feels like summer already." Practice with me. Exactly. Right. That's true. Sometimes you want to be polite, but also casual. Instead of only saying please and thank you, Americans often add phrases like, "No problem," "You got it," or "Sure thing." For example, if someone thanks you for helping, you can say, "No problem," or "Sure thing." These little touches make you sound warmer and more approachable. When you need to ask for something politely, you'll often hear phrases like, "Could you do me a favor?" or "Would you mind helping me out?" These are softer and friendlier than just asking directly. For example, instead of saying, "Give me that pen," you can say, "Could you do me a favor and pass me the pen?" Try it with me. Could you do me a favor? Would you mind helping me out? They sound natural and respectful. Let's practice phrases for everyday small talk. If someone shares good news, you can say, "That's great," "Good for you," or "I'm so happy for you." If they share bad news, you might say, "I'm sorry to hear that," or simply, "That sucks." For example, your friend says, "I just got a new job." You can respond, "That's great. I'm so happy for you." Or if they say, "I lost my wallet," you can answer, "Oh no, that sucks." Notice how these phrases match emotions naturally. Another important area is time phrases. Americans use expressions like "in a sec," "right away," or "in a bit." Instead of always saying, "I'll do it soon," you might say, "I'll do it in a sec." Or if your boss asks you to finish something quickly, you can say, "Sure, I'll do it right away." Try repeating "in a sec," "right away," "in a bit." These are simple, but they make your English sound less formal and more natural. When people want to give advice in a friendly way, they often say things like, "You might want to," or "It's a good idea to." For example, instead of saying, "Close the window," you can say, "You might want to close the window. It's getting cold." This softer tone makes you sound polite and caring. Sometimes Americans use filler phrases to show their thinking, but these are not the same as silence. You'll hear, "you know," "like," or "I mean." For example, "It was like really fun," or "I mean, that's what I thought." Be careful not to overuse them, but using them sometimes can make your English sound more natural. At this point, let's pause and remind ourselves, if you're enjoying this lesson, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more daily English practice. It helps you stay connected and motivated, and it supports our learning community. Okay, let's continue with more useful phrases. When Americans talk about the future, they often say, "I'll get back to you," "We'll see," or "I'll keep you posted." For example, if someone asks, "Are you free on Friday?" you can reply, "I'm not sure yet. I'll get back to you." Or if plans aren't final, you might say, "We'll see." Repeat slowly. "I'll get back to you." "We'll see." "I'll keep you posted." Another very common set of phrases happens when people want to end conversations politely. Instead of just saying goodbye, Americans might say, "Take care," "See you later," or "Catch you soon." For example, when leaving work, you can say, "Take care, have a good evening," or with a friend, you might say, "Catch you soon." Practice with me. Take care. See you later. Catch you soon. And finally, for this first part, let's look at phrases to show excitement or happiness. Americans often say, "That's awesome," "So cool," or "I love it." Imagine your friend shows you a new phone. You can say, "That's awesome, where did you get it?" Or if you see someone's travel photos, you might reply, "So cool, I love it." Repeat with me. "That's awesome." "So cool. I love it." These short, energetic phrases bring life to your English. Let's keep going and explore even more of the phrases that make English feel alive and natural. You'll notice that many of these phrases are short, casual, and often connected to emotions or everyday routines. They are the glue that holds conversations together, and when you start using them, you'll instantly feel more comfortable when speaking with native speakers. One of the most common areas where Americans use natural phrases is when they want to check if someone agrees. Instead of asking, "Do you understand?" all the time, they might say, "You know what I mean?" or "right?" at the end of a sentence. For example, someone might say, "It's so hot today, right?" Or, "That show was so funny, you know what I mean?" These little endings invite agreement and make the conversation feel connected. Another situation is when people want to soften bad news or disappointment. Instead of being too direct, they often say things like, "It didn't work out," "Things happen," or "It is what it is." Imagine your friend tells you they didn't get the job they wanted. You could say, "I'm sorry to hear that, but hey, it is what it is. Something better will come." Phrases like this show empathy and acceptance without sounding too heavy. Let's practice expressions people use when they need help or when they're asking someone politely. You might hear, "Can you give me a hand?" or "Do you mind if I..." For example, you could say, "Can you give me a hand with these boxes?" Or, "Do you mind if I sit here?" These are so much softer and friendlier than just saying, "Help me," or "Move." Practice slowly with me. Can you give me a hand? Do you mind if I... Americans also use lots of little phrases when something is easy or not a problem. For example, "No worries," "Don't sweat it," or "It's all good." If someone apologizes to you, instead of always saying, "That's okay," you can reply, "No worries, it's all good." Or if someone thanks you for doing something small, you can say, "Don't sweat it, happy to help." These sound casual and relaxed. When something is difficult, people often say, "It's a pain," "It's tough," or "It's not easy." For example, you might say, "Commuting every day is a pain," or "Learning a new language is tough, but it's worth it." Notice how these short phrases capture feelings without long explanations. Another very common set of expressions comes when people want to start telling a story or share information. Americans often say, "Guess what?" "You know what happened," or "Let me tell you." For example, "Guess what? I just got a new puppy," or "You know what happened yesterday? I met an old friend." These openings make your speech sound dynamic and engaging. Now let's think about how Americans react to exciting or surprising news. In addition to "no way" or "seriously," which we practiced earlier, you'll also hear "that's insane," "unbelievable," or "that's wild." For example, "He finished the marathon in 2 hours." And the reply could be, "That's insane. How did he do that?" Try repeating these slowly. "That's insane." "Unbelievable." "That's wild." In casual conversations, people often want to show that they agree, but also that they have more to say. A very natural phrase is, "Yeah, and..." For example, that movie was really funny. And you can reply, yeah, and the music was amazing too. Or, the restaurant was crowded. And you might answer, yeah, and the service was slow. It's simple, but it helps you keep the conversation moving forward. You'll also hear Americans use softeners like kind of or sort of. For example, instead of saying it was boring, someone might say it was kind of boring, or I'm sort of tired today. These make statements sound less direct, which often feels more natural, and conversation. Another common feature is shortening phrases. Instead of always saying, I am going to, people often say, I'm gonna. Or instead of I want to, they say, I wanna. For example, I'm gonna grab some coffee, or I wanna watch that new show. Practice with me. I'm gonna. I wanna. These contractions are everywhere in spoken English, and using them will make you sound more authentic. When something goes well, people often celebrate it with short phrases like, nailed it, you did great, or nice job. If your friend finishes a project, you can say, nailed it, looks awesome. If someone cooks a good meal, you might say, nice job, this tastes amazing. These are encouraging and fun to use. If something doesn't go well, there are casual ways to express that too. You'll hear, my bad, I messed up, or I blew it. For example, if you forget to call someone back, you can say, oh, my bad, I totally forgot, or I messed up on the test. These phrases make mistakes sound lighter and more human. In conversations about plans, you'll often hear, sounds good, that works, or I'm in. For example, if someone says, let's meet at 6, you can answer, sounds good. Or if they say, want to join us for dinner? You might reply, I'm in. Try it with me. Sounds good. That works. I'm in. Another area to practice is how Americans show doubt. They often say, I'm not sure about that. Maybe, or simply, I don't know. But they deliver these softly, often stretching the words a little. For example, I don't know, maybe we should wait. Or, I'm not sure about that. Let's think again. Using these keeps your speech natural and flowing. When you want to encourage someone, phrases like, you got this, go for it, or don't give up are everywhere. For example, if your friend is nervous about an interview, you can say, don't worry, you got this. Oh, or if they are unsure about trying something new, you might say, go for it. You'll be great. These short, supportive lines bring warmth into conversations. When ending conversations, sometimes Americans don't even use goodbye phrases. They might say, talk to you later, catch you tomorrow, or simply later. Imagine you finish a call with a friend. You could say, okay, talk to you later, or just later. They're quick, natural, and friendly. And let's not forget phrases for showing gratitude in everyday moments. Besides thanks or thank you, you'll hear thanks a lot, thanks so much, or I really appreciate it. For example, if someone helps you carry something heavy, you can say, thanks so much, I really appreciate it. Practice slowly with me. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Sometimes, when someone thanks you, Americans respond not only with no problem, but also with any time, of course, or happy to help. These are short, warm ways of showing kindness. For example, thank you for watching my dog. You can reply, of course, anytime. Notice the rhythm. Anytime. Of course. Happy to help. Now, let's shift to phrases people use when something is not clear or when they didn't hear something. Instead of always saying what, they often say sorry or come again. For example, if someone says something quietly, you can reply, sorry, could you repeat that? Or casually, come again? These are softer and friendlier. And finally, in this section, let's look at how Americans show excitement when they agree to do something. They might say, count me in, sounds awesome, or I can't wait. For example, your friend invites you to a party. You can reply, count me in, sounds awesome. Or, I can't wait, it'll be fun. Practice with me. Count me in. Sounds awesome. I can't wait. Let's dive deeper into even more of these everyday phrases, because the more of them you know, the easier it will be to follow conversations and jump in with confidence. Remember, these are not complicated academic words. They are simple, short, and used all the time by native speakers in daily life. Think about moments when you want to agree enthusiastically. Instead of just saying yes, Americans often use phrases like for sure, definitely, or absolutely. Imagine someone says, do you want to go to the beach this weekend? You can reply, definitely, that sounds perfect. Or, absolutely, I'm in. These small words carry strong, positive energy and make your English sound alive. When something is uncertain, you'll notice people saying, kind of, sort of, or more or less. For example, do you like spicy food? You might answer, sort of, but not too spicy. Or, are you done with your homework? You can reply, more or less, I just have one part left. These phrases add nuance and sound natural in everyday talk. Let's practice some phrases that people use when they are surprised or impressed. Besides, no way or that's insane, you'll also hear, that's crazy, that's nuts, or that blew my mind. For example, she finished the puzzle in 10 minutes. You can respond, that's nuts. How did she do that? Try repeating slowly with me. That's crazy. That's nuts. That blew my mind. These bring excitement and keep conversations fun. Now, what about when something is disappointing? Americans often use casual phrases like, that's rough, that's too bad, or bummer. Imagine your friend says, I missed the bus this morning. You might say, oh, bummer, that's rough. These little lines show empathy without needing long explanations. In conversations about time, you'll often hear phrases like all the time, once in a while, or from time to time. For example, do you watch movies? You can reply, yeah, all the time. Or, do you go hiking? You might answer, once in a while. Repeat after me. All the time. Once in a while. from time to time. These phrases make your speech sound smooth and natural. Another thing you'll notice is how Americans give suggestions. Instead of always saying, "you should," they often say, "how about," "why don't we," or "let's." For example, "how about we grab lunch?" or "why don't we take a walk?" These are softer, friendlier, and more inviting than giving a direct order. Sometimes, when someone is telling a story, you'll hear them use linking phrases like, "so then," and "guess what," or "before I knew it." For example, "so then, the waiter brought the wrong dish," or "and guess what, I saw my teacher at the store." These phrases make stories flow naturally, and they keep listeners interested. Let's think about how people encourage each other in everyday conversations. You'll often hear, "hang in there," "you'll be fine," or "keep it up." For example, if a friend is struggling with work, you can say, "hang in there, you'll be fine." Or if they are practicing guitar, you can say, "keep it up, you're getting better." These supportive lines make interactions warm and positive. Another common group of phrases are used when people want to make plans but stay casual. You'll hear, "let's catch up," "we should hang out," or "let's grab a coffee sometime." For example, "let's catch up this weekend, it's been so long," or "we should hang out, I miss talking to you." These are light invitations, and they sound very natural. When Americans want to say something was really good, they often say, "that hit the spot," "that was perfect," or "that was just what I needed." Imagine drinking cold water on a hot day. You can say, "ah, that hit the spot." Or after eating a tasty meal, "that was just what I needed." Practice slowly with me. "That hit the spot." "That was perfect." "That was just what I needed." In moments of hesitation, you'll often hear filler phrases like, "well, let's see," or "you know." For example, "well, I think we should leave soon," or "let's see, maybe we can try a different restaurant." These small pauses help conversations flow more naturally and give you time to think. Sometimes people want to express that something doesn't matter. You'll often hear, "whatever," "it's no big deal," or "not a big deal." For example, "sorry I forgot to text." You can answer, "it's no big deal," or "I spilled a little water." The reply could be, "whatever, it happens." These phrases show flexibility and ease. Now let's focus on how people react when they agree strongly. You'll hear phrases like, "exactly," "that's what I was thinking," or "you read my mind." For example, "we should order pizza." You can say, "exactly, I was just about to say that," or "we need a vacation." You could reply, "you read my mind." These phrases make conversations feel connected and friendly. When Americans want to express relief, they often use phrases like, "thank goodness," "what a relief," or "that was close." Imagine you almost miss the train, but catch it at the last second. You might say, "Phew, that was close." Or, after hearing good news, "thank goodness, I was so worried." These show emotion in a natural way. Another very useful set of phrases comes when people want to politely change topics. Instead of saying, "let's talk about something else," they might say, "by the way," "speaking of," or "that reminds me." For example, "by the way, have you seen my keys?" Or, Speaking of travel, when is your next trip? These connectors keep conversations smooth and natural. When someone gives you good news, you can use short, enthusiastic phrases like, "That's fantastic," "That's wonderful," or "Good to hear." For example, "I passed my exam." You might reply, "That's fantastic. Congratulations." These supportive lines are simple but powerful. And when something goes wrong, you can use phrases like, "What a shame," "Too bad," or "That's unfortunate." Imagine your friend says, "The concert was canceled." You could say, "What a shame, I was looking forward to it." These phrases show empathy without being too dramatic. Finally, in this section, let's practice some very casual, everyday phrases that you'll hear constantly. Things like, "No kidding," "For real," or "Seriously though." For example, "That place has the best burgers." You might answer, "No kidding, I have to try it." Or, "He's really talented." And you could say, "For real, he's amazing." These are short, friendly, and make conversations sound authentic. Let's keep the energy going, because the more phrases you hear, the more natural your own speaking will become. Remember, the goal is not to memorize everything at once. It's to get familiar with how these phrases sound and then slowly start using them in your own conversations. One very common area where phrases come up is when Americans want to show excitement. Instead of just saying, "I'm happy," you'll often hear, "I'm pumped," "I'm thrilled," or "I'm so excited." For example, "I'm pumped about the concert this weekend," or "I'm thrilled you could come." These add emotion and friendliness to everyday talk. When something is okay but not amazing, you'll hear phrases like, "It's fine," "It's all right," or "Not bad." For example, if someone asks, "How was the movie?" you might say, "It was all right," or "How's your day going?" You could reply, "Not bad." These keep your answers casual and balanced, just like native speakers. In moments when people want to express surprise but in a positive way, you'll often hear, "Get out of here," "You've got to be kidding me," or "Shut up," said in a playful way. For example, your friend says, "I won the lottery." You might reply, "Get out of here, that's amazing." Or if they say, "I saw your favorite celebrity," you could say, "Shut up, no way." These phrases sound friendly and dramatic at the same time. Let's practice everyday reactions to someone's suggestion. Americans often say, "Sure thing," "Sounds good," or "Works for me." For example, "Let's meet at 3 o'clock." You might reply, "Sounds good," or "Can you send me the file later?" You could answer, "Sure thing." Try saying these slowly. "Sure thing," "Sounds good," "Works for me." When someone shares bad news, you'll often hear sympathetic responses like, "That's tough," "That's rough," or "I feel for you." For example, if your friend says, "I have so much homework this week," you can say, "That's rough, hang in there," or "I lost my phone." You might answer, "That's tough, I feel for you." These small, supportive lines keep conversations kind. Sometimes Americans want to give a casual warning. Instead of saying, "Be careful," you might hear, "Watch out," "Heads up," or "Be careful out there." For example, if someone is about to bump into something, you might say, "Watch out." Or before walking into a crowded area, you could say, "Heads up, it's busy in there. These short phrases are easy and natural. Another set of useful expressions happens when people want to show understanding. Instead of repeating, "I understand," they often say, "Got it," "Makes sense," or "I hear you." For example, if someone explains why they're late, you can answer, "Got it, no problem," or "Makes sense, traffic is always bad." These are light, natural ways to show you're listening. When you need more time to think, you'll often hear phrases like, "Let me see," "Hold on a second," or "Give me a minute." For example, if someone asks you a hard question, you could reply, "Let me see. I think the answer is yes." Or, "Hold on a second. I need to check my calendar." These phrases keep the conversation moving while you think. In casual conversations, Americans often react with small, enthusiastic phrases like "awesome," "cool," or "sweet." Imagine your friend says, "I bought a new bike." You can reply, "Awesome, that's so cool." Or, "I got the job." And you might say, "Sweet, congratulations." These short responses are used constantly in daily life. Let's practice phrases for showing relief. You'll often hear, "That's a load off," "Thank goodness," or "I feel better now." For example, "I finally finished my project." You could say, "That's a load off, good job." Or after hearing good news, "Thank goodness, I was worried." These add emotional depth to your English. Sometimes people want to politely show disagreement. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," they might say, "I'm not so sure about that," "I don't think so," or "I see it differently." For example, "Pizza is the best food in the world." You might answer, "I'm not so sure about that. I think pasta is better." Or, "That plan will work." And you could say, "I see it differently, but let's talk more." These softeners make you sound polite even when disagreeing. Another everyday phrase is "fair enough." It's used to accept someone's opinion, even if you don't fully agree. For example, "I don't like that movie." You can answer, "Fair enough, it's not for everyone." This keeps the conversation respectful. Let's practice phrases for ending conversations in friendly ways. Besides "take care" or "see you later," you'll often hear "catch you later," "later on," or "talk soon." For example, "I have to go now." You could answer, "Okay, catch you later," or "let's talk soon." These are short and warm. When something happens suddenly, Americans often use quick reactions like "whoa," "oh man," or "yikes." For example, if you see something surprising, you might say, "Whoa, that's amazing." Or, if something bad happens, "Yikes, that's scary." These natural reactions add life to conversations. Another set of phrases are used to encourage someone gently. You might say, "Take your time," "No rush," or "Whenever you're ready." For example, if someone apologizes for being late, you can reply, "No rush, take your time." These phrases create a relaxed, kind atmosphere. In conversations about choices, you'll often hear, "It's up to you," "Whatever works," or "Either way is fine." For example, "Should we eat at home or go out?" You can answer, "It's up to you," or "Whatever works, I'm flexible." These make you sound easygoing and cooperative. When someone makes a mistake, yai, you'll often hear responses like, "Don't worry about it, it happens," or "No big deal." For example, "Sorry I spilled my drink." You could reply, "Don't worry about it, it happens." These are forgiving and casual. If you want to show strong interest, Americans often say, "Tell me more," "I'm curious," or "I'd love to hear about that." For example, "I just started a new hobby." You might say, "That's great, tell me more." These phrases encourage people to share and keep conversations alive. And let's practice some casual responses to invitations. You'll often hear, "Sounds like fun," "I'd love to," or "I'm down." For example, "Do you want to come hiking?" You can reply, "Sounds like fun, I'd love to," or simply, "I'm down." These are modern and relaxed. Finally, in this section, let's look at phrases used when people are busy. Instead of saying, "I'm busy," they might say, "I've got a lot on my plate," "I'm tied up," or "I've got too much going on." For example, "Sorry, I can't hang out. I've got a lot on my plate this week," or "I'm tied up at work today." These are very common in everyday conversations and sound natural and fluent. You're doing great so far. The more you listen and repeat these phrases, the more they'll become second nature. Let's keep building your toolkit of everyday American expressions so you can sound smooth, confident, and connected in every conversation. When Americans want to say something is easy, they often use phrases like "piece of cake," "no sweat," or "a breeze." For example, "The test was a piece of cake," or "Don't worry, fixing this will be a breeze." Try repeating after me. Piece of cake, no sweat, a breeze. These are fun ways to say something is simple. For situations that are the opposite, when something is difficult, you'll hear, "It's a hassle," "It's a pain," or "It's tricky." For example, "Finding parking downtown is such a hassle," or "This math problem is tricky." These make your language more natural than always saying hard. When something is impressive, Americans often use phrases like, "That's legit," "That's next level," or "That's top notch." For example, "Her cooking is next level," or "That design is legit, I love it." Practice slowly with me. That's legit. That's next level. That's top notch. These sound modern and authentic. Another common area is talking about time casually. Instead of always saying immediately, you'll hear right away, in no time, or before you know it. For example, "I'll get that done right away," or "We'll be there in no time." These phrases make your timing sound more natural. Let's move to expressions people use when they want to reassure others. You'll often hear, "It's all good," "No worries," or "We're good." For example, "Sorry I'm late." You could answer, "It's all good, don't worry," or "Thanks for helping me." And the reply might be, "No worries, we're good." These create a warm, friendly tone. When someone is trying to remember something, they often say, "It's on the tip of my tongue." "Let me think," or "I can't remember off the top of my head." For example, "What's the name of that actor?" You might answer, "It's on the tip of my tongue." These keep the conversation natural, even when you forget details. Now let's practice phrases used when something surprising happens in everyday life. Americans often say, out of the blue, out of nowhere, or all of a sudden. For example, she called me out of the blue after years, or it started raining out of nowhere. Try repeating slowly, out of the blue, out of nowhere, all of a sudden. These expressions give color to your storytelling. When you're explaining that something happens often, you'll hear day in and day out, over and over, or all the time. For example, he practices piano day in and day out, or I hear that song over and over. These little rhythmical phrases make your English lively. Sometimes people use casual phrases to mean, don't worry. You'll hear, it's chill, relax, or take it easy. For example, everything's fine, just chill. Or, take it easy, there's no rush. These phrases make you sound laid back and comfortable. When something is strange, Americans might say, that's weird, that's odd, or that's bizarre. For example, the lights turned off by themselves. You could say, that's weird, or he left without saying goodbye. You might answer, that's odd. Simple phrases like these are very natural in daily speech. To show excitement, people often use short, enthusiastic words like yay, woohoo, or awesome. Imagine your friend says, I passed the exam. You can reply, yay, congratulations, or I got tickets to the game. You might say, woohoo, that's awesome. These sound happy and genuine. When something is obvious, you'll often hear phrases like, of course, obviously, or duh. For example, do you like ice cream? You can reply, of course. Or, he's really good at soccer. You could answer, obviously, he's been playing for years. These are everyday ways to show agreement. Sometimes people want to encourage action. They'll say, go for it. Why not? Or give it a shot. For example, should I try singing at karaoke? You could answer, go for it, give it a shot. These are supportive and motivating. When Americans want to explain that something isn't certain, they use phrases like up in the air, not set in stone, or we'll see. For example, our travel plans are still up in the air, or the schedule isn't set in stone. These sound casual and realistic. Now let's practice phrases for everyday agreement. You'll often hear, for sure, no doubt, or exactly. For example, that was the best meal I've had. You can reply, no doubt, it was amazing. Or, practice makes perfect. And you might say, exactly, I couldn't agree more. These add natural flow to your conversations. When people want to show relief or express that something ended well, they'll say, better safe than sorry, all's well that ends well, or crisis averted. For example, we almost missed the train, but we made it. You might say, crisis averted, or I locked the door twice, better safe than sorry. These make your English colorful and idiomatic. Let's look at some phrases that people use when they need a short break. You might hear, I need a breather, I need a break, or I need to recharge. For example, I need a breather after that run, or I just need to recharge this weekend. These are casual and relatable. Sometimes people want to show they don't care too much about the details. They'll say, "Whatever works, it doesn't matter," or "Either way is fine." For example, "Do you want tea or coffee?" You could answer, "Either way is fine," or "What movie should we watch?" You might reply, "Whatever works." These keep the conversation easygoing. When someone shares exciting personal news, Americans often respond with, "Gee, ode for you," "I'm so happy for you," or "That's wonderful." For example, "I just got promoted." You can reply, "Good for you, that's wonderful." These phrases show happiness and support for others. Finally, let's practice phrases that people use to describe how they're doing. Instead of always saying, "I'm fine," you'll hear, "I'm hanging in there," "Can't complain," or "Doing all right." For example, "How are you?" You might say, "I'm hanging in there, thanks," or "Can't complain, life's good." These are natural, friendly ways to answer without sounding robotic. We're almost at the end of our journey together today, but before we wrap up, let's go through more of those everyday phrases that will help you sound natural, confident, and connected whenever you speak English. When Americans want to say that something is very unlikely, they often use phrases like "fat chance," "not gonna happen," or "don't hold your breath." For example, "Do you think he'll lend me his car?" You might answer, "Fat chance," or "Will the teacher cancel the exam?" You can reply, "Don't hold your breath." These short phrases carry a lot of meaning. If something is very easy to see or understand, you'll hear, "It's clear as day," "It's obvious," or "plain and simple." For example, "He's tired, it's clear as day," or "This rule is plain and simple, just follow it." These help your English sound direct and confident. Now, let's practice phrases people use when they're trying to be flexible. You'll often hear, "I'm easy," "I don't mind," or "whatever you prefer." For example, "Where should we eat?" You can reply, "I'm easy, whatever you prefer." These show that you're open and relaxed. When people want to show strong agreement, they sometimes use dramatic expressions like "without a doubt," "hands down," or "no question about it." For example, "She's the best singer here, hands down," or "That was the funniest movie, no question about it." Repeat with me, "without a doubt," "hands down," "no question about it." Sometimes Americans want to soften their suggestions, so they'll say things like, "Maybe you could," "You might want to," or "How about if?" For example, "Maybe you could try studying earlier in the day," or "You might want to talk to your teacher about it." These sound polite and supportive. When something feels unfair, you'll often hear, "That's not fair," "Come on," or "Give me a break." For example, they canceled the game at the last minute. You can respond, "Come on, that's not fair," or "We have to pay extra?" And you might say, "Give me a break." These phrases are short and expressive. Another everyday set of phrases are used when something is confusing. You'll hear, "I'm lost," "I don't get it," or "I'm confused." For example, "Can you explain that again? I'm lost." Or, "I don't get it. Can you repeat?" These are direct but friendly ways to show you need help. When people want to emphasize how much they agree, you'll hear, exactly, you said it, or that's so true. For example, we all need more sleep. You can reply, exactly, that's so true, or English practice makes a big difference. And you might say, you said it. These phrases are short but powerful. Let's practice phrases for showing excitement about future plans. Americans often say, looking forward to it, can't wait, or it'll be fun. For example, see you at the party. You can reply, can't wait, looking forward to it. Or, we're going hiking this weekend. You might say, it'll be fun. These add positive energy to conversations. When something is shocking or hard to believe, you might hear, you won't believe it. Guess what happened? Or, get this. For example, guess what happened? I met my favorite actor. Or, you won't believe it. I just won a prize. These are lively openings that keep your listeners interested. In casual chats, people often want to show they agree quickly. You'll hear, totally, for sure, or, yeah, definitely. For example, that meal was amazing. You might answer, totally, it was the best. Or, that's the right choice. And you could reply, yeah, definitely. These are quick, natural responses. When someone thanks you, you'll often hear, no problem, don't mention it, or anytime. For example, thanks for helping. You can reply, don't mention it, anytime. These keep the tone casual and friendly. Now let's think about phrases people use to show disappointment. You'll hear, that's too bad, what a pity, or that's a shame. For example, the event was canceled. You might say, that's too bad, I was excited, or we missed the bus. And you could reply, what a pity. These short expressions fit naturally in daily life. Sometimes Americans use phrases to show that something is very likely. You'll hear, chances are, most likely, or odds are. For example, chances are he'll be late again, or odds are it's going to rain. These are casual but confident predictions. Another set of everyday phrases are used to show uncertainty. You'll hear, I guess, maybe, or not sure. For example, will they come? You can say, I guess so, or are we leaving soon? You might reply, not sure, maybe later. These phrases are flexible and easy. When people are impressed, they often use short reactions like wow, amazing, or incredible. For example, I saw the sunrise over the mountains. You can say, wow, that's incredible. Or, she speaks 5 languages. You might reply, amazing. These show wonder and enthusiasm. Let's practice phrases people use when they want to say goodbye casually. You'll hear, see ya, later, or catch you later. For example, I'm heading out. You can reply, okay, see ya, or catch you later. These are everyday farewells. When people want to motivate each other, they often say, you can do it, don't give up, or keep going. For example, I'm nervous about the exam. You can reply, don't give up, you can do it. Or, I feel tired. You might answer, keep going, you're almost there. These add encouragement and positivity. Finally, let's practice some casual expressions used constantly. Things like cool, awesome, sweet, nice, or great. Imagine your friend says, "I got new shoes." You can reply, "Sweet, nice shoes," or "I learned a new word in English." And you might say, "Awesome, that's great." These short reactions are part of almost every American conversation, and with that, you now know 125 phrases that Americans use every day. Phrases that will instantly help you sound more natural, more fluent, and more confident in your English. Remember, you don't have to use all of them at once. Start by choosing a few that you like and try using them in your daily conversations. Little by little, they'll become a natural part of your speaking. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm really proud of you for practicing and staying committed to improving your English. Every phrase you learn brings you one step closer to sounding natural and confident, and I believe in your progress. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future lessons. Keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and I'll see you in the next lesson.